Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. This is Liberty RoundTable Live. It is the broadcast for September the 19th in the year of our Lord 2025. Promoting God, family, and country, protecting life, liberty, and property. That's who we are and what we do in the traditions of our founding fathers. The incredible checks and balances put in place by the founding fathers in the supreme law of the land. One of the great, peaceful, restorative solutions we have at our fingertips to restore the country, to preserve the nation, and more. By the way, it is a freedom-loving, fantastic, faith-filled. We're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time. Friday. What does that mean? The good doctor's in the house. That's what it means. Dr. Scott Bradley with me, freedomsrisingsun.com. Welcome back, sir.
Glad to be with everybody that's listening out in the hinterlands. Thanks for seeing us.
Some people are in the big old high-rise buildings with their internet listening and watching to Liberty Roundtable Live going, what on earth is going to happen next? Answer, Operation Arctic Frost. You say, what the heck is that? It's a government out-of-control, what do you want to call it? An experiment, an abuse, an operation, a criminal activity. Who knows what to call it? But here's the details. The FBI, under the Biden administration, investigated at least 92 Republican-aligned individuals and groups as disclosed by whistleblower records and released to the American people by Charles Grassley. The operation was named Arctic Frost. It originated under this guy named Timothy Thibault, or I think that's how you say his name, who, according to Grassley, in a Fox News interview, misused his authority to basically sick Jack Smith on President Trump. Now, Jack Smith has been attacking everyone. He's the one that attacked Steve Stockman. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Among those targeted, believe it or not, was Turning Point USA. Based on documents provided by FBI Director Kash Patel, this broadened investigation, they say, was initially just intended to focus on Donald Trump and his actions post-2020 election. But then, well, it expanded significantly and took a life of its own. Here's my only question left. I get it. The Republicans have been reporting on the criminal activity for literally 5 years now since the election. What do we have for it? No arrests, no criminal activity, no harm, no foul. Barack criticizing conservatives now saying, oh my gosh, we have a tyranny under Donald. There's no free speech left anymore. At the same time, nothing's happened to any of these people. I'm going to say it's Operation Talk and Do Nothing, Doctor.
Well, it tends to be the modus operandi of the Republicans. They don't seem to know how to govern. They're afraid to govern. I don't know. Maybe they were just incompetent. I don't know what their excuse is, but nevertheless, that's the outcome. But it's interesting to me that all the people that are claiming that Trump is tromping around, if you will, ooh, that's a good image. Trump is tromping around in all of these individual God-given rights he's crushing and everything like that. They've been doing it all along, calling the kettle black or whatever you want to call it. But, you know, here's just a perspective. You might have noticed there was this little thing called the Fourth Amendment in the United States Constitution.
Wow.
And you might have noticed that.
It is Constitution Week. Good for you, Doctor.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I'm tying in the current information that we probably want to give some moment to. At any rate, then these guys come along, and it's in the 1990s, mid-1990s, a couple of guys named Orrin Hatch and Joe Biden teamed up with an omnibus crime bill that was absolutely an onerous crime bill that started to erode these things like they had never been eroded before. Well, I guess you could say in World War I with Woodrow Wilson and with Lincoln in the Civil War and stuff like that. But this is a mass invasion, if you will. And their omnibus crime bill started really chipping away at these things. And then 9/11, 2001 comes along, and Orrin Hatch claimed again to be the principal author. I don't know if he had the brain power to do it, but of this thing called the Patriot Act, USA Patriot Act. And that that bill eviscerated. It removed the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment does not exist anymore in practice. I mean, we can still get it out and read it. It's in the organic document and all that kind of stuff. But what's been happening since then is that anybody and everybody that thinks that they have a good excuse that they can create or make up or fabricate, whatever you want to call it, they come along and they eviscerate the rights of Americans. I mean, CIA, oh yeah, bring them in. They're going to be looking at Americans. Fusion centers, yeah, we've talked about this before, Sam, where if you've got a bumper sticker that says Second Amendment or pro-life or Ron Paul or Chuck Baldwin, whatever,
Oh, yeah, you
suddenly
better be put down as a flat-out terrorist.
you're a domestic terrorist probably. As the officer pulls you over, he's thinking, keep my hand on my handgun. I'm going to be pulling this out and empty it here in a minute because we got some domestic terrorists here. I mean, I got pulled over in Missouri one time. I had 5 kids and my wife and me in the car. And, it ended up being okay. So I'm not trying to build this into something it wasn't. But I just had to wonder what's going through this officer's mind as he comes up on my vehicle, And it could have gone upside down and backwards. And so anyway, yeah, you're right. This stuff that's going on with anybody and everybody being able to pull the strings to violate, just take that Fourth Amendment I brought up. That thing doesn't exist anymore in practice. I mean, we should be able to renew it, but honestly, let's go into what Pam Bondi's saying. It's close, but it's the First Amendment. Oh yeah, man, we're going to go after hate speech. What's hate speech? It's there. Hate speech is in the eye of the beholder, like beauty. Okay, and if you say that you're pro-life under one administration, you're engaged in hate speech, or you say God created 2 sexes and they're eternal, and that's the way it is, folks. Oh no, that's hate speech against some other identifying minority group. Oh, you talk about fuzzies. Whoever doesn't think it's cool that everybody can now be an animal if they want. Oh, that's hate speech. And that's kind of what some people are excusing. Furries. Yeah. Okay. I'm not up to date with the latest thing. It's kind of LOL when you text. I don't know if it means laugh out loud or it means lots of love. I mean, I don't, but the fact of the matter is, there's, in England, I saw a picture of a young woman, 31 months in prison for expressing some concerns about some violations.
I thought LOL stood for lies upon lies.
That's a U.
Oh.
LUL.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
no, Sam, I'm telling you, in Pam Bondi,
Lies on lies.
Lies on lies. Okay.
All right.
Pam Bondi.
Here's the question, though. Pam Bondi, everybody else, this Grassley guy, I appreciate him whistleblowing. I appreciate the whistleblowers. I appreciate people bringing this to our attention. I think that's wonderful. But here's my problem. He says in a Fox interview, so he goes on partisan TV. They report, you decide, but hey. And they say that, hey, he abused his authority. That's all. You abused your authority. It's not criminal. It's not you're going to jail. It's like, hey, you threw your lollipop in the dirt, and because of the 10-second rule, you picked it up and you can still eat it. That's all. And there's no accountability. Now think back about the IRS days. Lois Lerner literally got caught attacking conservatives and using the IRS as a weapon against conservatives. Barack Obama got caught joking about it in a speech. We played that back in the day. So Barack Obama knew, Lois Lerner knew the IRS was sicked after the conservatives back in the day. The only thing that happened is Steve Stockman went to prison on false charges, and Lois walked away free. Now we're on round 2. Now you got Grassley rolling out going, hey, man, Arctic frost happened. This FBI agent by the name of Timothy Thibault, hey, he misused his authority there, doctor.
Well, there's...
When are we going to have these people go to prison? When is this going to stop? Or are we just going to, in 10 years, go, oh, the new president, he's a Democrat. He's attacking everybody again. And then we're going to be like, oh, this is horrible. This can't happen. Let's get the conservatives back in office. And then they're going to waste time. Now they're up against a wall on the debt ceiling. They're going to melt down, and everybody's like, hey, we got to pass this thing. Mike Johnson's walking out there. Oh, we just need more time. We just need more time to work on this, doctor. Just, pinch hit for me. I don't see anybody could not support more time. I mean, that's Mike Johnson right now.
Okay, so 9 months ago, we came into a new year, didn't we? Well, it started back in October 1st, a year ago,
Yeah, because
almost.
of the way the budgets work in Congress, right?
Right. You run into the end of a budget year on the 30th of September. You start anew on October 1st. The problem is Trump came in, the new Congress came in January, and here we are up against the 30th of September again, and they're going to kick the can down the road again until the 21st of November. And boy, that's a discussion we could have at great length.
I think we got to just create an association called the Can Kickers Association. Everybody can be a member of it, and we'll just spend ourselves into oblivion till the whole thing topples. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. So I've just decided it's called Operation LOL. Lies on lies, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we're seeing here. There's not going to be any accountability for this. This guy misused his authority. They caught him at it. Grassley goes on Fox, does a big old brownie button. Wow, we got him. Got him, doctor. And in the end of the day, hey, since President Trump returned to the White House, hey, good news. His second presidential stint, they say, roughly 2 million illegal immigrants have been deported. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. So all you got to do is say, hey, bad on the old FBI, bad on this clown that misuses authority. Shame, shame. But Donald got rid of 2 million illegals, and he's just getting cranked up, and he's got 3 years left. So there's a hope and a prayer. By the way, pass the budget fiasco, because if you don't, you're an evil person. And, okay, isn't that where we are? And Congress has literally done nothing in 10 months, doctor. Nothing that I can see of any real value. Not any long-lasting value, anyway.
Well, the folks in Congress that say they passed the big, beautiful bill that Trump wanted. But
no, it was an unconstitutional disaster. 90% of what they focused on, funded, unconstitutional, criminal enterprise government, rogue agents in government everywhere, money misspent everywhere. It wasn't a beautiful bill. It was an absolute bogus boondoggle.
Well, there's no question about that. But I want you to cogitate on this for just a moment.
Yeah.
If they pass this, where they punt the ball down or kick the can or whatever you want to call it, to the 21st of November, I think that's the target date that it'd go, we'd go black again as a country when we run out of money. Okay, so here we are. We're going forward with spending as it was the previous time that we've been operating this budget year. Whose budget was that, I might ask you? And
Mike
I think
Johnson's?
that no, it was originally Joe Biden's. So everything that's being passed forward is a Joe Biden keep hold kind of thing, basically.
Yeah, but let me tell you why I call it Mike Johnson's, because at some point the Republicans have to own it. If they embrace it and carry the ball forward, either they reject it or they own it, sir.
Yeah, but look, everything Biden did is upside and backwards, right? And that's what everybody's telling us that. But what this Republican Congress is doing is they're passing forward for another several weeks at least, and I'm sure it'll go into 2026, because they don't want to stir the pot, baby, when we're going into an election year. And basically they're passing a Joe Biden spending plan. And they're renewing it at least, or keeping it alive, or whatever you want to call it. But nobody's talking about that. They're just saying, oh, we're just going to keep spending at what it's been. What was it? Who originally put this together? Who approved this? And yeah, Congress did. There's no question. But it was under the tyranny of Joe Biden that they would have us believe is destroying the country, and they're just extending that tyranny. So, I mean, and by the way, one of the things that they're going to have to get their arms around at some point is this Affordable Care Act stuff that expires at the end of the year. And, there's conservative Republicans right now that are saying, hey, baby, there's people in my district that find some benefit in this. And I'm saying, well, if we can pick your pocket and somebody else can take it in their pocket, yeah, they benefited from it.
It reminds me of how they do abstinence-only sex education. It used to be, let's get rid of sex education. Now it's like, all we got to do is increase the abstinence piece of the pie, right? When it's disaster on steroids and getting worse. And the longer we kick the can down the road, anyway, I just need to start the Can Kickers Association or something like that. But here's the deal. President Trump has now announced that ahead of the 2026 midterms, the Republican Party will host a midterm convention in order to show the great things that have been done since the presidential election of 2024. Aren't you excited to go to the midterm conventions and celebrate all the incredible work they've done, Doctor? Just
Well,
incredible work.
this is first I've heard of it, but I wouldn't have gone if I'd have known for months in advance. But in
Come
addition to
on
that,
now.
here's what the
You
deal.
realize how awesome this is, Doctor?
It's a pep rally, Sam. I know you know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
You're
But
right. It's
it's
crazy.
a pep rally before the football game, or the basketball, whatever your school did in high school. It's a pep rally, rah rah, sis boom bah, go get them Tigers, all that kind of whatever team
Yeah.
was. But it is just a pep rally, and
Wait a minute. It's celebrating all the great things we've done since the presidential election of 2024, buddy. I mean, this is huge. You get a chance to just absolutely celebrate your success, Doctor.
well, again, it's a marketing ploy, and they're playing all their cards. I mean, I got to admit that. I wouldn't have done it had I been president because I never liked pep rallies. But the fact of the matter is,
Oh, come on,
that's what
Doctor.
the election's going to be, a pep rally. That's what it boils down to.
The election is a pep rally. The midterm, I don't even know where they're going to hold these midterms, but I'm just telling you right now, I don't feel comfortable in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination or in the wake of J6 or anything else. Hey, when Trump says come to an event, I'm thinking, no thanks. I'll either die or go to jail. Why would I want to do something like that? The
Oh,
Republicans have that really around their neck right now, don't they?
well, I don't know if the Kirk thing can be hung around their neck completely, but here's the deal. I think they'll find a large venue, probably tens of thousands of people will be able to get in, and inside the venue is a lot better to keep a cap on danger points. So I think that they'll be able to find a venue that's big enough, and they'll be able to find parking and all that kind of stuff. So people will have to think that thing through, absolutely, just like you're talking about. But I think they'll be able to hold their venue, and
Can I give you
and
a hint?
I'd like to hear
I
it.
won't be there.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty definitive statement.
I am not going. I don't see any value in going. I think 90% of any successes they hear, I would argue with. I'm not saying Trump hasn't, in a lot of ways, tried to do a lot of good. I think he has. But I think it's nowhere in terms of its reality. So let's celebrate Constitution Week together. Think about that compared to celebrating Donald and Team Republicans' successes. I'd rather celebrate Constitution Week. It started September the 17th. It's through the 23rd. We can celebrate that. That has some validity. But to celebrate all the good the Republicans have done midterm in a big old convention, it seems like a waste of time. I mean, can you really list a ton of wonderful accomplishments they've done? You will say, he did this. I'll say, yeah, it's unconstitutional. Well, he did that. Yeah, without Congress, it's unconstitutional. He did that. Look at the tariff dollars we brought in. Yeah, but it's unconstitutional. I mean, we just go right on down the list, Doctor.
Well, and then if someone were really thinking about it, they're really continuing the Joe Biden years with the way they're kicking the can down the road with the budgets. I mean, it really is. You could celebrate maybe Trump's claimed, victories, but as you point out, most of those are very short term because they were done through executive orders, which will be unseated the next time the next sheriff comes to town. I mean, if stroke of the pen can do it, the stroke of the pen or eraser or whatever you want will take it off the books again. And that's just the way they're doing business. So,
Yeah.
they
Maybe we ought to
need.
start a kick the can pack, and anybody who voted to kick the can down the road, we target for dismissal.
Well,
And when I
that's
say
probably
target,
good.
I mean from the elections, folks, not a literal gun discussion. Don't go there, people. I just mean, hey, you'll be the next guy to take a walk, and somebody else can, decide they'll serve in Congress. We've got to do something, Doctor. We, the people, have got to start to stand up, letting them celebrate the 2-year midterm elections. Congress has done everything they can to undermine what Trump's done. What Trump's done is wrong because it's not the checks and balances, and he's taking action outside of his lane. His ideas a lot of times are good and right, but we've got to have Congress double down. They haven't doubled down and backed hardly anything that he's done.
Well, no, the Congress really has been kind of never showed up. I got something for you though that it'll emphasize maybe a little bit.
Sure.
You know, the Congress is talking about they got to get 218 signatures, and then they'll be able to demand, and Mike Johnson won't be able to stop it. There are 217 signatures to bring forth the Epstein files. So they're one signature away. But the Senate, just I think it was last week, might have been the first of this week. I didn't note the date. The Senate had a similar kind of run at that. There were 47 Democrats that voted to bring forth the Epstein files and 2 Republicans, Hawley and Paul. So there were 49 votes in favor of doing this. Now, of course, Vance would have come in if they got 50 and he had broken the tie. But if they can get a couple more Republicans to come over. Now, here's the point I wanted to make, I guess. If you want to see the Epstein files, if your Republican senator does not have the name Hawley or Paul, your Republican senator voted against that. And I bet you can start naming some in your state that didn't do it, because there's only 2 in the whole United States that voted in favor of that. 2 Republicans that voted in favor of bringing forth the Epstein files. Now, here's the point.
And I commend them for that, by the way.
No question. It's a good thing. It's something that should have happened and should still happen. But here's the deal. The Brits, okay, they kind of disowned Prince Andrew because of the Epstein fiasco. I mean, they're at least admitting that. Here's in the royal family. And then they just fired their ambassador to the United States. And Trump keeps calling it a Democrat hoax, where the Brits are at least taking some action. And we can't seem to get that message here.
The only hoax is to think that Jeffrey Epstein's death stopped the trafficking. The truth is it continues unabated, and we can't even get the Republicans to stand for accountability or transparency because they want to blame everything on the Democrats. Partisan politics is destroying the country. Let's celebrate Constitution Week, jettison all parties, and stand for the supreme law of the land, shall we? By the way, Turning Point USA announces Erika Kirk, that's Charlie's wife, as new CEO. We'll talk about that too coming up. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right, I'm calling it hard-hitting TV. Welcome to Liberty Roundtable Live. Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. Sam Bushman, yours truly. Oh, man. The FBI under the Biden administration went out of control. They created Operation Arctic Frost. They literally spied on all of these constitutional conservatives and Republicans and everybody. And it turned out, it's a disaster. And they acted outside of their authority, reports Chuck Grassley. And wow, it's horrible. And I'm just asking, when are people going to prison? I'm sick of hearing about it. Lois Lerner and the IRS spied on the conservatives back in the day, got away with it then. They lied about Russiagate, got away with it then. They bleach-bitted their hard drives and got away with it then, Hillary Clinton and company. And we just see it over and over. And they love to report. They love to have hearings. They love to have a committee look into it. And at the end of the day, nothing happens, folks. When will we get truth to power on this? Okay. Operation Arctic Frost. When are we going to have Operation Barbecue and barbecue these people? I don't mean literally. I just mean, hey, when are we going to really obey the law? When is the law going to mean something? It is Constitution Week after all. Let's look to the Supreme Law and say, none of these are really federal crimes. They're all state crimes. Let's have the states prosecute. Let's have sheriffs arrest. Let's have the AGs get it done. But since President Trump returned to the White House, they say, hey, we've got rid of 2 million illegals. So that's good. They've been deported or gone or chose to leave or whatever else. And wow, that's a great thing to celebrate. Now President Trump has announced, hey, they're going to have a midterm 2026. What do they call this thing? A big rally, as Dr. Bradley wisely calls it, or maybe you call it it's a convention, a Republican convention to just highlight all the incredible things we've accomplished. Meanwhile, the debt is out of control, and there's no accountability there either. They're going to force a continued spend plan in the next couple of weeks. Watch. It'll get right down to the wire. And then, as always, they twist enough arms and tweak enough, careers, and then go, oh, we got this thing passed. Thank the heavens. We kicked the can down the road now. All's good. And then it's going to come up at Christmas or something again. It's like, oh my gosh, you can't give everybody a horrible Christmas and close the national parks. And they just go off on this just absolute psychotic, deceptive, manipulative, dishonest campaign. And the media is complicit, helping with every bit of it. It's disaster. I'm recommending we celebrate Constitution Week together instead, and we learn to apply the supreme law of the land and all the checks and balances and make sure nobody gets too much power. Chain them all down with the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I say. Turning Point USA was one of the people under attack by this bogus plan by the Democrats, but there's no accountability. But now Charlie Kirk's passed away. Our prayers are with his family, obviously. And now Erika Kirk, his beautiful wife, is now the CEO of Turning Point USA. She says, hey, Charlie's embodied in me, and I'm going to go ahead and take care of business so you never forget his name. And now Turning Point USA, listen to this, receives over 50,000 new inquiries to launch chapters after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Blake Wolf writes the piece on this thing. Think about that. 50,000 new inquiries to launch chapters. I mean, that is something huge, ladies and gentlemen. Doctor, do you want to respond to that? And then we'll get to the education department fiasco.
Well, there's so much to talk about there with Erika. She's a strong and capable woman. She really will be the one that embodies the original spirit of this thing, I believe. She was unanimously elected by the board. Everybody has full confidence in her, and I just have a little twinge in my heart about that. She's got two little children, beautiful little children, and I sometimes that divine role of motherhood, it seems, gets set aside, even by good people that are really, really high quality people. I don't know if anybody can take her place in the home with those little ones. I think she said the other day that that her husband, Charlie, she told one of her little people that he was on a business trip with Jesus. That's a really pretty good line. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think anybody can replace her and her family. And I don't think there's any way anybody can put a value to that. Now, as to these new inquiries, you might be interested to know, by the way, that the institution right down there by south of you, Brigham Young University, has deflected, turned down, rejected any efforts for the last number of years for his organization to have a chapter in their university. And they rejected him coming in and speaking. And I think it speaks of wokeism. I think that there's a cowardly approach to that. The exchange of ideas, maybe this is a segue into your discussion perhaps on the Constitution that had its 238th birthday this week. But I'm here to tell you, or last week, excuse me, but the fact of the matter is those guys dialogued. They exchanged information. They exchanged ideas. There was not this closed, echo chamber that seems to be some individuals are living in. And out of that came, under the inspiration of God, a new constitution. And so I am just absolutely shocked that some institutions that profess to be institutions of higher learning are completely closed door to this kind of stuff. Okay, going back to Erika, I wish her the best. I hope that she's able to somehow juggle the both jobs. I suspect that the job heading the organization will be passionately led by her, and she will embody the enthusiasm and the dedication that her husband did, and maybe even improve upon it in ways that he hadn't thought about. But the fact of the matter is, she's the new boss, and the new sheriff in their town, if you will. Of course, I think she had a lot of input previously.
Yeah, and here's my hope. I get your point, Dr. Bradley, that, you know what, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. I mean, that point's really well taken. And the value of a mother in the home, the value of her interacting with and teaching her children principles of God, family, and country and stuff. Absolutely a vital role. And I agree that we don't want her to skip out on that. Here's my hope for this. I think part of the reason that she's made the CEO of this thing, I'm not suggesting that she's not capable in any way. I think she's incredibly capable. Don't misunderstand the point. However, I kind of wonder if she's CEO to a great degree, kind of in name only, and she'll spend time with her family and her children, and then they'll use her strategically, but there'll be an operations director, or there'll be, somebody else that can, kind of carry the day-to-day bulk of this thing. We can't speak on one college campus anymore. We've got to speak on, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 at a time. We can't, just have one speaker. We got to create a whole speakers bureau. If we're going to really turn Charlie Kirk's Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point, into the real Turning Point, the dream, we've got to have dozens of constitutional speakers. We need to send Sam Bushman and Dr. Scott Bradley and all kinds of educators on the road to really articulate the Constitution and the role of, the proper role of government and the rule of law and the checks and balances. And, all these things need to really be. So I hope that she makes sure to put her family first. And I hope using her name and then those around her can kind of bridge the gap you speak of. At the same time, make sure the organization expands its mission. I also hope, if we're not very careful, well, let me say it this way. I hope we can stop this. But if we're not very careful, you're going to have it like the Tea Party. Somebody else is going to jump in front of the train and take it over. So that's something we got to watch and be very, very careful of indeed. And I hope she can, behind the scenes, kind of be the leader that says, no, we're not doing that. Yes, we are doing this. And I hope she can keep the mission pure. I hope she can spend time with her family. And I'm hoping a ton of us can step up and carry the ball. What do you say to that, Doctor?
We can be hopeful. We'll watch it carefully. I hope that the mission doesn't take mission creep. You point out 9/11s and these different organizations. I mean, people that, oh yeah, I want to lead the homeschool group, and it becomes basically a surrogate for the public education. Oh yeah, I want to lead this new freedom movement. I want to get in front of the parade and be the, drum major or whatever. And what we find is that they become toothless dogs. And just like with the Republican Party, this dog don't bark. I mean, the scriptures talk about that. And you get a bunch of people that want to be the leader of the parade, and they try and do capture of it. I see this happen virtually every time. And it very, very, very often happens when the founder of an organization passes on, dies, retires, whatever, and the organization kind of loses the pizzazz it once had, the focus, the dedication, whatever. And I hope that the Charlie Kirk's organization carries forward with vigor and strength, and it does multiply instead of diminish.
And I pray that the trajectory that Charlie was on, when he first started out, he wasn't super educated, but the longer he went along, the better he did in terms of understanding the real landscape of the world and truth telling. We hope it continues. We'll do everything we can to see that that is the truth. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. So, you know what? I love Turning Point USA. I think Charlie Kirk was trending in the right direction for sure. He was more mainstream than I am by far, but yet I think he did a wonderful job. I think he was pure in his heart. I think he meant well. I don't think that he was a game player. I think he did his best to call it as he saw it. And I know before he died, Benjamin Netanyahu promised to give him a bunch of money, and Charlie didn't really want to do that. And then he was kind of fearful. Now, whether that's a real true factor about, what happened to him, I have no idea. I can't really say. But I know that's there's a lot of strange things surrounding his death. And I know people don't want to bring that up. They just want to praise Charlie. And I think it's wise to kind of really understand some things. So let me give you an example. President Trump says he was going to abolish the education department. Just shut that sucker down. I couldn't applaud more. The Republicans have been talking about that my whole life. Maybe one day they'll actually get it done. But I see everything contrary to that. Everything in contradiction, Dr. Bradley. So here's the headline. The Department of Education announced a partnership with Turning Point USA, aiming to, quote, enhance civics education, nationwide ahead of America's 250th birthday in 2026. Why on earth, if we want to abolish the education department, would you partner with, Turning Point USA? The coalition, they say, America's 250 Civics Education Coalition. Think about that. America's 250 Civics Education Coalition. That doesn't sound like a shutdown to me. Includes over 40 organizations like Hillsdale College, Turning Point USA, America First Policy Institute, Moms for Liberty. And then the Trump administration announces a redirection of $500 million to, quote, historically black colleges and tribal universities. The total funding, believe it or not, for historically black colleges this year alone will rise to $1.34 billion, doctor. And so I look at this thing and I say, I don't really see that we're going to abolish the Department of Education. The last headline, and then, Doctor, I want you to run with this, says Trump's going to ask for a 15% cut in the education budget for the next budgetary discussions. We're not even close to abolishing the education department. In fact, we're cranking it up, Doctor.
Well, that's the problem, is that very often people think, well, if my flavor of communism were to be implemented, and I'm kind of trying to make the point that, communism's never been fully implemented because the right kind's never been, and so it's never had the success. And that's the problem, is everybody wants to continue to try the poison, and nothing really comes out of it except for more deaths and destruction. The poison kills everybody. So your guy gets in charge, and they want to redirect the money, pull the levers of government on behalf of their approach to things. Unconstitutional is unconstitutional. In fact, we talk about the Constitution being signed September 17th, 1787, 238 years ago. The initial draft that the gentleman put together in May of 1787 in Pennsylvania, when they first gathered, was a first draft of a new constitution. They were pretty sure they were going to write a new one. In fact, they knew for sure they did. They were going to. They weren't going to just amend the existing Articles of Confederation. So they put out, very shortly after they got a quorum there, a draft of a constitution. It had an educational element in it for the United States government. By the time they debated this sucker down through the hot summer of 1787 and came to the conclusion in September of 1787, that educational element had been left out. Now, there were founders in those days. Thomas Jefferson, he wasn't at the convention, but he thought that education was important. There ought to be a national element of that. George Washington even had twinges of desire that way. But it was not in the Constitution. It did not get put in. After a long, hard, arduous discussion and debate, it is not there. Now, you read in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 that education should be encouraged. That doesn't mean we write it in and we fund it and we run with it as a national policy. Encourage education, and that does not mean, like I say, a full-throated funding kind of thing. So I am concerned that what's happening right now with the education department is just a slight variation of what's always been going along, and that they're saying, well, we're going to do it the right way this time. We're going to make it work this time. It's going to be a good thing because we're going to keep it on track. No, I guarantee a new sheriff in town will do exactly what's been done so far, and we're not going to get anything back to a constitutional railroad track again. It's way off in the weeds.
Think about it. Total funding for historically black colleges this year will rise to $1.34 billion. That's a 48% increase, Doctor.
Well, that's what I say. You pull the levers of government on behalf of whatever you think it ought to be, but that doesn't make it right. And so you're looking at $1.33 billion going to this program and another $1.33 to that, or whatever. However they divide the money up, it's still money that's unconstitutional to be spent. And they debated that. They discussed that in
So if it's
1787.
unconstitutional, it's really illegal, right, doctor?
Yeah, well, that's my definition of
And
it.
if
If
it's
it don't
illegal
fit,
expenditure of money, it's stealing, right?
well, there's nothing in the Constitution that allows the redistribution of wealth to anybody, not you, not me, not
Wait a
cities,
minute,
not
not
counties.
me, doctor. Come on now.
Exactly,
I
and
mean, do you
not
realize who I am?
I do, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't say you can spend. You can't send it on corporations. You can't spend it on institutions. You can't put it to the states. You can't send it to foreign powers. You can't put it in
Whoa,
alliances. There is
whoa.
no approval for redistributing wealth from American taxpayers to anybody in the entire world.
Amen. By the way, when I say, do you realize who I am? You know what people usually say? Yeah, you're the guy that belongs in seat 44B. Get back there. Go.
Is that the one you always ask for? I'm
I'm
going to
just
have
saying
to.
that's what generally happens to me and everything else. But I look at this and I appreciate Turning Point, but we cannot let our quest to support Turning Point turn into anything goes. Anything we say or do could just be, oh, everything's fine if it's Turning Point. They're great, they're awesome, they're above reproach, and we can't play favorites like that. Turning Point did a great job. I hope and pray they expand. I'll do all that I can to help them. But the education department partnering with Turning Point USA, what does that mean when they partner? Right?
Well,
What does that mean, doctor?
they're adopting their philosophies and so on, and you say, well, this is in this instance it's good, but
Is there money?
some that's money. Somebody else is going to come along and say, I got a great idea too. How about you partnering with me?
Yeah.
So it
Grease
can't
my
be
palm.
done.
I've got some ideas. Me and Chat GPT are really smart. You bring me in there and that's the problem is that if, at some point, everybody pulls the lever of government in their favor unconstitutionally, immorally, dishonestly, and then we couch it in the greatest causes. So I don't know who's sending money to whom when it comes to Turning Point and the education department working together. And maybe there's no money exchanging hands. But when I see headlines like, hey, the Department of Education announced a partnership. And then they say with Turning Point USA, but then they say a coalition. The coalition is called America 250 Civics Education Coalition. Over 40 organizations. You can't tell me money's not a flowing somewhere. I don't believe it. All those 40 organizations are like, yeah, don't give us any money. We'll just help with the cause here. There's going to be money exchanging hands. And see, I reject this because I'm not one of the 40. Why don't I get a piece of that pie? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not really wanting or asking for a piece of that pie. I'm just making the point. Hey, what are we thinking? We run on, we're going to get rid of the education department. Then we announce we're partnering with 40 organizations. We're increasing by 48% the amount of money we give to special interest black colleges. Now, I'm not against the blacks, but why do they get it? Why do they get an increase of $1.34 billion or whatever? It's insanity and it's got to stop. And so we're being played, doctors, the whole point. At some point, somebody's disingenuous. We're going to get rid of the education department and then we crank up this coalition with 40 plus groups in it. Pretty soon, those 40 groups will be saying, oh, no, you can't get rid of the education department. We're kind of like sex education. We want abstinence only. Just make sure our piece of the pie grows bigger. Let's make sure the TPUSA piece grows bigger. And some of those other guys, get rid of them. They're the bad guys. And then the next president comes in and is like, hey, we've got this incredible coalition here. We're going to put our guys in and take your guys out. And now it's just whose flavor you like. We've done nothing except for expanded government. Who's going to warn people about this if it isn't for me, doctor?
Well, we do have to give that warning constantly and unequivocally. And what's happened, I'll just give you an example of mission creep, if you will. We mentioned earlier the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are going to expire at the end of the year, and now we have quote unquote conservative Republicans, which that's a really bad name. At any rate, I don't think many exist, if any. But the fact of the matter is, they're saying no. We got to figure out a way to do this. So they need some time to figure out how to hold their mouth so that it'll be palatable to them. Their people won't say they sold out, but they'll still give the goodie box to the people in their voting district. And so it's a mission creep and it never goes away. This
Ladies and gentlemen, we must use the checks and balances to chain them down and stop it. Next hour, I want to talk a little bit about education more. because I guess they're promoting witchcraft in government schools at our expense, blatantly, openly, in your face, and there's not really any accountability. We'll talk about it. Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. I'm Sam Bushman, lovingliberty.net. Spread the word, share the love, and God save our constitutional republic.